Hey, it's Holly. In today's video, this is going to be part 1 of 2. We are going to attempt to put a new silicone mold together to make more of these resin poly figures. And we'll see if it works. I got some new tools I'm excited to show you, but let's just give it a shot. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so today I'm going to be walking through another attempt at making a mold, and this is not an easy process, and I will say right off the bat, I am by no means a professional, but I'm going to walk through the process. I do have a new tool in my toolkit that I'm hopeful may improve this, and just taking in some feedback, I'm gonna see if I can put something together that should work a little bit better. We'll see how that goes. So what I've got right here is plastiline clay. Specifically, this is clay that is sulfur free, and that is really important when you're making silicone molds because clay that contains sulfur, I guess, can interact with the silicone. I don't know the exact details of that, but effectively that's what I've learned. So sulfur-free clay that I am warming up here in my hands. And for what we're going to be creating a mold of today, I have effectively a Tina, Polly, and Midge figures that I have 3 different bottom pieces for. So that's what we're going to be attempting to mold. And we're going to start by warming up this clay and kind of getting it flat. So what I've been doing so far to make my molds is just kind of using a mat. This is just like a desk pad from IKEA. And I'm using that to basically get just a nice flat piece of clay to work with. And thank you to everyone that kind of helped with this process. Hopefully I can take your feedback into consideration and try to figure this out. But if you haven't seen my previous video where I was making poly figures out of resin, the one thing that has just been hard with these small parts is getting air bubbles out and not having your casting, so your ultimate plastic piece, ruined by air bubbles. And I've had a few successes, but it's not consistent enough, so I'm going to try a different technique today. So we've got our clay, and I have now something called a mold box, which sounds gross, but it's not. We're gonna use that. But effectively, I am going to start by just kind of cutting this down to size. So roughly around there. And one of the tips was to try to fill the figure from the side. So specifically trying to fill from the hips and then from the feet. So the way I think I'm gonna try this today is, let me think about this. If that goes in, yeah, okay. So the way I'm going to try this today is to basically have one part of the poly figure kind of exposed. So I'm going to place these along the edge, pretty close to. Bear with me, we'll see if this works. But just gently placing them in there for now. Now, what I've been doing in the past, and again, not an expert, but I've just been kind of using, these are tongue depressors, which are basically glorified popsicle sticks they use to check you out at a doctor's office. Just bought these in bulk. You could use popsicle sticks too, just to kind of press the figure into the clay a bit. And effectively, you want to get it roughly to a midpoint so that half of the figure is in the clay. That's the ultimate goal. And now what I'm going to attempt to do, and again, I don't know if this will work, but what I'm going to attempt to do is fill it from the feet and the hips was the advice. So to have that effectively like open that I'm going to pour into, so that will kind of be free to the air. So bear with me while I do this very messily. Again, this may not work, but I'm not a pro. I will just repeat myself with that as we go through this. So doing that, just gonna cut the sides off here for a moment. And then I'm going to show you the box thing that I'm going to be using. Okay. So my idea is, or the idea I have been proposed at least, is to try to fill from the top. So that means basically I'm going to have the bottom mostly exposed. Now, the one catch is this will not capture the detail on the feet of the figures, although that's not important to me right now because I'm not trying to actually copy the figures, if you know what I mean. I'm not trying to make a perfect replica of something. I'm using this to make my own figures for my custom poly set that I'm trying to make. So bear with me. I hate having the excess clay on here. We're just gonna scoop that up. All right, so there is my figures. So I've got them situated in here. I, again, don't know if that's exactly what I'm supposed to do, but we're gonna try it. And this is my new fancy thing. So I got this off of Etsy and I purchased it because what I was doing previously was basically taking pieces of plexiglass, putting the clay on there, hot gluing the plexiglass basically into a shape like this, and then taking it apart. And it works, but it is frustrating. So the idea with this is you can adjust it to multiple sizes. I believe this was a company on Etsy, sorry, I did not look it up right away, called J&L. But they make, if you were to Google mold box for silicone, you would find it. So basically this will adjust to any size that I want within its parameters. It is 3 inches high and it has these little tabs on it. So the idea is you could have something as small as that and you can expand it out. And I actually have another set of expanders that it can get as wide as 8 by 8. So depending on what I want to mold. But this is what we're going to be working with today. So we'll see if I can get this relatively close so that we don't have to do a ton of extra work. So, so one there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fill in with a little bit extra. And this is just going to be the side, so it's not a huge deal of it being perfect here. give this a go. Did I, oops, overshot that a bit. Here we go. Okay, so here's what it looks like from the bottom. So I've got it mostly squished in there. So best practice is basically just to make sure that if there's any gaps anywhere that you've filled them in. And that's just because if there is even the smallest little leak, the silicone starts to run out. But I don't think this one is going to have huge problems. What I've also done in the past is just taken a little bit of extra clay and just kind of gone up the sides here. I was previously using a chopstick, which I think, unfortunately, is no longer in my kit. So we will improvise. I'm going to use the tongue depressor. So what I was doing before was basically just going in. This is like that operation game. But just kind of gently mashing it into the corner just to make sure that there's no place for it to leak. Yeah, these two corners are just a little bit, just, okay, this one is super close. And some of this stuff is like, it's a bit time consuming, but it's worth it to be thorough as best you can. Now I'm going in with tweezers, I'm getting frustrated. But you just want to be a little bit thorough with this stuff just so that you don't end up wasting all your material. I say that, and then the next thing I'm about to say is going to be the opposite of that advice, but just do as I say, not as I do, right? Okay. Gosh, my nails are too long right now. How do I deal with this? I am just trying to even that out a bit. All right, okay, I am happy with this. So we've got them situated in the box like that. This again is what it looks like on the back. So it's all kind of locked into place. And that means we are now ready to pour our silicone. So I haven't shown the silicone before. I previously, in my previous video, just showed casting. So this video, I'm going to make the mold, and the next video, we are going to do the casting, just because I don't have the energy to put it all together in one video today. But let's go ahead and get that going. So the thing is, whenever you are going to do this, you want to make sure that you are ready to go, because everything has a pot life, as I mentioned in the last video. So this is the material I'm going to be using. It's called Mold Star 16 Fast. It's by Smooth On, and it has a pot life of 6 minutes, meaning by the time you hit 6 minutes, you basically can't do anything with it anymore. And then by the time you hit 30 minutes, it's pretty much ready to demold. So this silicone that I'm using doesn't need to go into a vacuum chamber, nothing like that. That's why I'm using it, because I am not at that level. I am just doing this as a hobby for the moment. So to do that, the nice thing about this particular silicone is that it is 1-to-1. So technically you don't need to measure it. It's just one part of part A and then one part B. So as long as they're equal, it'll work out. But I just don't trust myself to do that effectively. So I am going to be using a scale. There's no harm in doing that. It's just that is what is going to make me feel a little bit better about the process. So I typically will always just make my area safe first. These both need to be stirred really well. So I've got a few extra tongue depressors here, and if they are not stirred well, then it's not going to work well. So you have to make sure that you do all of the correct preparations before you start mixing these things together. Otherwise, again, you're just wasting material. Okay. Bear with me as I awkwardly break into this. Safety note, I am going to put gloves on because I forgot to do that. Definitely, please, anytime you do stuff like this, just make sure you've got your skin and your eyes protected and you are in a well-ventilated area because this stuff gets a bit stanky. Okay, so there is that. So part A is really thick and goopy. So it's gonna take a minute to stir that. Part B, if I recall correctly, is a lot runnier. And I'm not the most patient person when I'm excited about something, so this is really hard for me to sit here and stir this because I just want to get to the next step. But it is important that you do a very good job with this. And I will be changing my gloves in between stirring these two because inevitably when you're doing this, you get some on your gloves and you don't want to mix that with part B while you're stirring it up. So we are going to, oh, this like hurts. So if I can explain, it's really thick and it's actually quite hard on my hands to stir this. Okay. I'm feeling pretty good about this one now. So I just scrape the excess off into the container, and then I always have a garbage bag ready that I can go into. So we will put this away. This one is stirred and ready for us. We're gonna put it off to the side. New pair of gloves. Okay, and we're going in for part B. So that one was very thick. This one we're gonna have to break into as well. Yes, so this one is like this sort of beautiful ocean blue color. You can see that. So you gotta stir this really well. Now, here's a mistake I made the other day. I was mixing silicone and I got it on my clothes, and now I know how to get silicone out of clothes. But you don't want to get it on your clothes. So just make sure that you have covered up your area really well and don't get distracted, which is what happened to me. I got distracted, wasn't paying attention to the stirring, and I accidentally tilted the container too much and got it on myself. So be super careful with this stuff. It also can be a skin irritant, so multiple reasons we don't want to do that. Okay, so this one, oh, also thick. All right, I feel like I've blocked out the trauma of stirring these last time. It's been a few weeks since we last made a mold, so here we go. Okay, and again, I'm just scraping the sides to save as much material as I can here. All right. Ta-da. Okay, so that is all in the garbage now, done. We've got our silicone parts both mixed up. Going to just put on one more pair of gloves. This is just Glove City today. Now if you're doing molds, mold making you typically will do like once in theory, every now and then. Whereas once we have this mold put together, we can cast the resin into it multiple times. So this process doesn't happen every single time. Okay, so I have my scale. I've got these mixed up. Again, I've got an extra stir stick here, and we are gonna go for this now. So what I've got here is just a plastic 10-ounce cup. I had originally bought a bunch of these from the supply place that I was getting the silicone from, which was just like a local, basically they sell silicone and resin and anything that people would use to make movie props, because that's one of the main industries here. So they had a bunch of these cups, and then I realized these are basically the same thing that you would buy at the dollar store. So I went and bought a bunch of party cups from the dollar store. So just a little cup. Now, back to what I was saying earlier, you can be really good about not wasting your material, and I try not to, which is why I am making the mold a lot smaller this time versus last time. I just grab this out and show you here. I like, this is just a huge waste of silicone, right? Because I have all of this extra stuff around the side that I didn't need. So I'm not doing that this time. And instead I am going to have it set up like this. And now I'm just thinking, am I doing this right? I think so. I think I'm okay with what I'm doing. Let me think about this for a minute. No, we're good. We're just gonna stick to our guns. Don't change the plan, Holly. Okay, so we've got that set. I am now going to scale. So I'm turning this on with the cup on it so that it's all zeroed out. And I'm just going to make sure that it is set to milliliters, perfect. So you just want it, again, equal parts A and B. So you can measure exactly how much you need of the material by calculating the volume. I'm just not that smart. So I'm just not gonna do it. I'm just gonna wing it because that's what we do around here. So equal parts. Okay, that is probably more than enough. So we are sitting at 14 milliliters there. So now I'm going to come in with this one, and I'm just turning it so that I don't accidentally get any of part A onto part B. So I'm going for about 14 of this. Now you're welcome to laugh at me if I overdo it, because I'm not very good at this. Okay, that was 6. Now remember, this has, oh gosh, okay. Oh, we're pretty close, we're pretty close. This has a pot life of just 6 minutes. So once you get it in there, you have to just start stirring pretty quickly. So I'm just gonna see if I can get, this is my perfectionist tendency here. Just see if I can get one more milliliter out of this. I'm asking for trouble by doing this, but okay. We did it. Okay, we did it. We're done. So 15 and 15, so 6 minutes. The counter started basically the time they touched each other, so we are now probably much closer to 5 minutes. And I'm just coming in with, just gonna get this out of the way, with a tongue depressor, and my goal is to get this completely stirred together. Some people will even double mix this so as to pour it into a second cup and then go from there. I'm just not that patient. That's gonna be a theme, and that's probably where I'm gonna go sideways if I'm being honest with myself, but I'm a very stubborn person, and I am not afraid of making mistakes until I get the technique down. But that does mean sometimes I have to try a few more times. So here we are. Okay, so this is all set. Now, this is how I spilled it on myself last time, was I was tilting it to see if there was any like white stuck anywhere that I hadn't mixed in, and then I spilled it on myself. So just again, you don't want to get this on your clothes. Trust me, it is not easy to get out. Possible, but not easy. Or wear an apron. Again, I'm too impatient for all of that. So you got me with the safety precautions of the gloves and the eyewear, but that's about it. All right, once you have it mixed, then you're ready to pour it. So you just kind of want to do this slowly. This particular silicone that I'm using does kind of self-heal, so the bubbles float up on its own. But you want to start in a corner and just kind of slowly go in. So it's kind of mesmerizing to watch it. All the while I'm trying not to mess it up or spill it all over the place, but I will use the tongue depressor to just kind of help scoop it out, because it, again, like it starts solidifying really quickly, so you don't have a ton of time to work with it. This reminds me of the Nickelodeon slime. That was enough. Here I am thinking, no, that was more than enough, and I'm not fully confident in that statement now, but you do want to make sure that it's got like usually about 1/2 inch of coverage, or so, maybe not 1/2 inch, but at least 1/4 inch. I think it's pretty close. Okay, and now we will just take a look at it. So it does look like it's distributed quite well in there. So it takes 30 minutes to cure, so we are gonna let it do its thing. And then after 30 minutes, we can literally just take this thing apart. The good news is as I spin this around, aside from the few places that I got silicone, nothing's leaked out. So that means we did get a good seal with the clay. Excellent. So there's a few things going well for us so far. Again, I don't know if this mold design that I'm trying here is not my typical go-to for the ones I've done in the past, so I don't know if this is going to work for me, but we'll give it a shot. So my main tips would just be make sure that you've got everything nearby ready to go. Make sure you have a plan to clean things up if they go sideways. So I like to make sure that I have multiple paper towels and a garbage bag and all sorts of stuff ready to go. But this is looking fantastic. So we're gonna leave that for honestly, I'll probably leave it for about 40 minutes. Come back to it, and then we'll demold it and continue with the second half of the process. Okay, so it has been about 35, 40 minutes, somewhere in there. And we're going to demold the first part of this. So you can tell the silicone has set if you just kind of poke at it and nothing happens there. So by the way, before we do that, this is the company that made that mold. So if you are interested in getting something like that, definitely check them out on Etsy. So far, I am super happy with it. But we are going to pull these off. So normally if this was plexiglass and hot glued, you would have to peel all the hot glue off. So that's why I went this route. Oh, look, it just comes off so clean. This is so great. Now, there we are. Okay, so first part's done. So the second part of this is we are going to basically do the same thing, but we are just going to peel off all of the clay. And we're going to, when we do that, attempt to leave the figures in the silicone so we can capture the other side. Now, this is an opportunity to clean up anything that's going on that you're not happy with. But the goal is to just get rid of all of the extra clay and all that stuff. And you do just want to check that there isn't like clay stuck on any of the pieces that you're going to be molding, because it will show up. But this actually looks great. Do I see any issues with this? Now, I don't know if this is the correct thing to do, but I will kind of usually just clean up some of the stuff that's on top. And I do that because I want to be able to pull the resin out really easily. So hopefully I'm not making a mistake by doing this, but I'm just peeling off the excess that's kind of on top of the figure. It is going to get filled in with silicone again, but I kind of want one side to be completely free, if that makes sense. Sorry, I'm not very articulate today. It's been a really long week over here, if I'm being honest. So I mean, I'm sure there's all sorts of good tools for this. I just use tweezers. And then if you saw my last video, I also like had this little pick thing. And that's just generally what I will use to clean stuff up. Okay, we're getting there. We are for sure getting there. So again, if you're wondering, why are you doing this? I just want to make sure that it is a very clean mold and casting at the end of the day. Uh-oh. Breaking midge out there, gotta be careful. So I'm just trying to make sure that anything that's on top gets freed. Because when we pour resin, we want to make sure that it gets in everywhere without complications. Okay, almost there, I promise. Okay, I think I'm happy with this. I'm just, I'm so picky about stuff, and I feel like if there's ever a time to be picky, it is now. I just want to clean Polly up a little bit more. Okay. I think I'm happy. I think I'm just gonna roll with it here. So I'm gonna show you where we're at, and then we are going to spray this with some mold release. So bear with me here. All right, so here's what we're working with. So we've got the figures in there. Basically just the top half is exposed, the bottom half is now embedded in the silicone, and it'll come out clean. That's not what we're worried about here. But we are going to put this back into the mold as we had it. Just rocket science for me to set this thing up again. It goes there. And then again, looks pretty good. I am just going to fill some of these holes with some clay so that we don't have leaks, ideally. I will say though, I'm very happy with this tool. I think it is super cool. It seems to be working really well. And I will usually just check for gaps by like kind of holding it up to the light to see if there's anything there. And I do see just a little bit on this side, so I'm just gonna fill that. Again, this is almost perfect, but the mold, the piece itself is kind of pushing on it and causing it to separate a bit. So that's where we're just gonna fill in those gaps. Okay, once you have it back in the mold, you can't just pour silicone on it right now because it will stick. Silicone will stick to silicone. So you have to first spray it down with something called mold release. And you can get this all sorts of places. If you're in North America, you can get stuff like this at Michael's, but I initially started by trying to buy the stuff that they sell at Michael's. Sorry, I'm trying to get this these little silicone bits in the garbage. And quite frankly, it didn't work very well. So I got, this was the recommended mold release. So basically you just kind of give this a little shake and then you spray it on the mold. You want to do this in a well-ventilated area because this stuff is gross. Okay, so here we go. So we are just gonna let that dry for a minute and then we are gonna go back in and give it a second coat. Now, what you can do in the meantime is you can brush it with a soft brush. I don't do that because I'm lazy, but the idea is that you can help kind of work it into the crevices a little bit better. I am totally off camera right now, just like away from that area, so hopefully you can still hear me. But the idea is that you would get it in those little crevices. I've found that that hasn't been a problem with the past molds at all, so I'm just skipping that step altogether. So I'm just gonna go in and do my second coat. Okay. And that is now going to just dry for a few minutes. So while that is drying, we can go ahead and get the silicone ready. So we're basically just back to where we were. This can go off to the side. We are setting up our station here. So we've got our parts A and B. We're gonna need a cup. We're gonna need some gloves. Okay, don't forget to zero that out. And some stir sticks. So I did 30 last time. I think I'm gonna go for 40 this time, just to give it a little bit more juice. But we've got part B there, and we have to do part A. Okay, so I'm aiming for a pour of about 20 here. And I normally don't pour this way. When you saw me pour earlier, I kind of tilted up the cup, and I found it's kind of hard to control it this way. We're definitely gonna probably hit 21 there. I'm sure some people may disagree with me on that, but I find it can just get a little messy quickly if you pour that way. Okay, so we are currently sitting at 21 on that one there. And now we are going to try to get 21 out of the other one. So that'll get us to 42. That's where we want to be. Okay, all right, we did it. There we go. So that is all tucked away in the garbage. I'm just wiping this all up to make sure it stays nice and clean. Okay, so now we probably have, again, like closer to 5 minutes to get this show on the road. So we are going to get right into stirring this. And again, you're just trying to get it a really consistent color, so no white ribbons in it or anything. So right now at the bottom there is like a ton of white going on, so I'm just mixing that out. And again, what some people will do is just pour it into a second cup, but my lazy heart says no. Okay, it's looking nice and consistent there in my color. Everything seems to be mixed super well there. So I am going to go ahead and just push this off to the side. We are going to bring in the mold. And we're going to start our pour. So we will again just start in a corner. not making a mess with this is honestly the hardest part. Okay, how are we doing in there? Looks pretty good. Just gonna scoop out the rest. Okay, well, I'm pretty happy with that. I'm sure it's hard to see this, but it does have a bunch of air bubbles in it, but those air bubbles, the silicone, it just kind of, they come up and pop. It's kind of mesmerizing to sit here and watch it, but I'm not concerned about those air bubbles because I have found that they do actually just completely come out on their own. It's the resin air bubbles that I'm concerned about. So we are almost there. We are going to give this again another half hour, 40 minutes or so, come back, check it out, and then see where we're at. But it looks like the second part of our mold is well on its way. So we'll give this some time to sit and do its thing. I am gonna get this all cleaned up in the meantime, and then we'll come back and check on this in a few minutes. Okay, so we are gonna break into this now. It is, or it should be set. Let's maybe just poke at it. Yes, it's good. Okay, so let's have a look. So the point of that spray was to make sure that none of the silicone sticks together, and it will still stick together a little bit, but will separate. So we will pull this out. Man, this thing is great. This is so much better than gluing plexiglass. Okay. Clean that up properly later. We'll just peel the excess off here. Okay, so it should be in the middle here that we should be able to separate these. So you kind of have to find a place to go in. Gosh, I hope this worked. I'm just gonna peel this extra stuff off. And sometimes you just have to find a way in. There we are. And you can see how easily it's separating now. And our figures are popping out. And that's what the mold release does, is it just makes it so everything falls out nicely. Okay, so I mean, it looks like this turned out pretty good. So just to, as everything falls. So the figures, just in case you were wondering, the figures come out totally fine and clean. So nothing bad happens there. And then here is some of the detail that the mold captured. So these look wonderful. So my goal is we are going to cast these a little bit later in the week. So for, I guess, the Thursday video, we'll be casting these. And we're going to try casting them like this with it shut. I'm going to seal it shut with some elastics and try casting through the top here and then see if that makes a difference. So we'll see how it goes. But that is what our goal is going to be for the Thursday video, so stay tuned for that. But that is how we made our mold this time, so we'll see how it goes. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. I think this is so cool. I'm really glad that I picked this up, and it's, I mean, super easy to clean this up. The silicone just scrapes right off it, anything that dribbled on the side. So I'll be able to clean that up very easily. But I'm super happy with this mechanism because, man, that just made the process a lot cleaner and easier. And, you know, if this mold doesn't work out for us, then we can just make another one and it won't be like a horrible, frustrating process of hot gluing, you know, plexiglass. So we'll see how this goes, but let me know in the comments how you felt about that process. If you've ever done this before, I always love to hear people's experiences, but we will try casting this in the Thursday video and see how we did. Okay, so we're done. We're gonna see how this works out for Thursday's video. I'm hopeful that this might work better for us. I guess we'll see. I know that some of these small parts are just really difficult to cast, especially without a vacuum chamber. I just really don't want to go down that route. But we'll see how this does. So I'm excited to test this out, and stay tuned. We will have an update in a few days. But I would love to hear your thoughts, and especially like how cool was that box, right? Like I just think that's gonna make things so much easier. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, please hit subscribe. Also, don't forget to turn on notifications so that you'll know when I post a new video. But if you can, also please like the video. All of that stuff helps out the channel so much. And if you're on social media, come follow along either on Instagram at Pocket Vintage Toys, Facebook at Holly Pocket Vintage Toys, and I just started a TikTok, and I'm not very good at it, so bear with me, but also Pocket Vintage Toys on TikTok as well. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.